Okay, can I get a roll call, please? Oh, hold on. I hate this. Are you? She's on.
Berkowitz,
Here.
Butler,
Here.
Ortiz, Oxley, Trainier, Winfrey, Newquist.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Instead of old business, I'm going to ask for a motion to move old business down to after new business because we do have some people wanting to speak. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed the minutes. I always do that. So before we have that, I'll ask for approval of minutes. Thank you. Thank you.
Second, Berkowitz.
Roll call?
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Butler, Ortiz, Winfrey, Newquist.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, now I will ask for a motion to move old business after new business. Since we do have some people here to speak, that way they won't have to wait for us while we have that conversation.
Second, Berkowitz.
Thank you. Can I get a previous? Second? I need it. Nobody wants to
Can I
second
second?
that? Or do we need a roll call? Do a roll call.
Yes.
Can you do a roll call without a second?
We have a motion and a second. We had it was the second on the previous roll that we didn't get.
Yes.
Oh, you're not on. She's not on. Okay, thank you.
Butler, Ortiz, Winfrey,
Yes.
Newquist.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Then moving on to new business, we have a presentation on our debt overview. Oh, here we go. Got it? I'm terrible about that. Thank you.
So this morning, I'm going to do a brief debt overview. I'm going to walk through what's involved in the process of issuing bonds. Who are some of the people that participate, some of the things we need to look for or think about when we're doing it. And all of that is a precursor to the next item on the agenda where we have our partners from Wells Fargo and Spear Financial here to present to you a savings opportunity, refunding some of our existing debt. So this morning we'll cover some general information about debt, identify the participants in a municipal bond issue, walk through the timeline, review things that you would consider when structuring bonds, talk a little bit about using rating agencies, methods for selling municipal bonds, and then at the end, we'll go over our current outstanding debt. So some general information. The county is authorized or given the authority to issue debt by state statute. I have provided that as an attachment if you're interested. It makes me fall asleep, but some people like to read through the legal mumbo jumbo. Governments use debt generally in the form of municipal bonds to fund public infrastructure or large water systems, schools, things like that. Debt can be issued as general obligation, alternate revenue, which requires that we pledge a revenue source to cover debt service in lieu of property taxes. Property taxes is a guarantee for the debt service, but we pledge to use something else so we don't have to increase property taxes. When a government issues debt, it receives an influx of cash, so it has the ability to pay for a project up front and then reimburse, pay it back over time. Prior to issuing debt, there's a lot of factors that the government should consider. You know, there's a lot of partners you work with, and the resulting paperwork is something that you're committing to, and it's important that everyone understands what the agreements mean in what they're committing to the county to. So next we'll move to participants in a bond issuance. So municipal advisor, Spear Financial has been the county's financial advisor for the almost 20 years I've been here, and maybe probably longer than that. They're required to offer and maybe opinion isn't the correct word, but a statement saying that they believe that we are financially capable of issuing and paying for the debt. The underwriter, we've used Wells Fargo, again, for the almost 20 years I've been here and probably before that. Bond counsel is an attorney that represents the county in the transaction. Disclosure counsel is also an attorney. Sometimes you can use the same person. On bigger issuances, we've used two separate attorneys. Disclosure, in our offering statement for bonds, we provide a lot of information to investors, financial, economic, things like that. And every year we need to update that and provide it for investors so they can monitor our financial health. Disclosure counsel helps with that in the bond process. Can you go to the next page? Then we would have our local counsel, which is our state's attorney's office. The bond registrar or paying agent, for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 issuances, we've used Amalgamated. Rating agency. The county has elected to get 2 ratings for every transaction we've had. We've used Standard & Poor's. Their bond rating is focused on financial activity. They review our financial statements with a fine-tooth comb and ask all kinds of questions. They're looking for, how we handle our money. Do we plan for larger activities? And we also get a rating from Moody's, and Moody's is all about economics, EAV, what's going on in the county. Do we have a lot of growth? What's our housing market like? So 2 very different perspectives. Our ratings have stayed the same, and we're not at the highest, but we're just a little bit under. Bond insurance company and an escrow agent. So those are also people that participate in the bond issuance. Can you go? So now a timeline. The issuing bonds, it's a long process. So we're right now at the first steps. We're talking about how that happens. We're going to have a presentation next about some savings opportunities. There's 2 different things, or a refunding and a tender that they're going to talk about. In the preliminary stages, you would select all your partners. And then it takes about 3 months to go through the, creating the preliminary offering statement, pricing, conducting the rating agency presentations. I did provide it just as a reference for you to look through. One of the attachments is an example of a document we prepare for rating agencies. We didn't used to do that back in 2016 when we did the large issuance for the Build Will programs. Our financial advisor and our underwriter at Wells Fargo kind of suggested that, and Rashawn and I work on that together, and we love it. I mean, it makes us feel proud. It's like we're selling the county to the rating agencies. So it's a lot of work, but it does make us feel good about it. So again, it takes about 3 months to get through it. The board, the important step for the board is there would be an ordinance authorizing us to take action. There's parameters in there. So the savings needs to be a certain percent. And there's a time frame. The ordinance we're able to use the ordinance for 6 months is typical. So we have some examples when the time comes, if the decision is to move forward, the ordinance gives the finance department under the executive the ability to move forward, working with our partners. Some of the things to consider when structuring bonds, and again, these are all things that we're assisted with using our financial advisor and our underwriter. The length of term for the bonds. Obviously, if you're issuing a huge debt, you can't pay it all off in a short period of time. It depends on what the rates are in the market. If you need it to fit in with other debt service, you know, at the end, I can tell you when some of our existing debt will drop off. It's nice to fit things in those niches because we're already used to paying a certain dollar amount. And we're not struggling with that. So fitting things in those pieces is sometimes helpful. And then tax status. The county can issue taxable or tax exempt bonds, but and I could be confusing this, but I think the refundings could not be tax exempt. That ability was taken away. They'll explain more of that in the next presentation. A couple other things to consider is if you want to issue as bank qualified versus not bank qualified, we typically don't do that. Those are for small transactions. And then one of the other things to consider is call provisions. If the bonds are callable, then you have the option of paying them off, refunding them. It gives the county or the issuer some other options for the future. Use of credit rating agencies. We've already kind of talked about this. Again, the county uses Standard & Poor's and Moody's. We can go to the methods. I'm sorry, I'm going through this kind of quick. Public offering or direct placement. We typically do public offering. Our bonds are rated. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And then the last page is, go back one. So this is a snapshot of our outstanding debt. We have $36.5 million of principal outstanding on what we refer to as the road bonds. It was three issuances done together. Two of them, the Build America bonds and the economic development bonds, receive a small rebate towards interest from the federal government. Those will be paid off in 2030. The series 2015, 2016, 19, 20, 21, those are at the bottom. This 2015 is the residual from the ADF renovations from years ago. We refunded some of that debt. There's very little left. You can see 10 million, and part of that is what's being considered for the refunding that'll be presented to you. The 2016, you can see initially was 175 million. A vast majority of that was refunded already, and that's in the series 2020. In the 2021 bonds are the RNG facility. The debt service with payments for each of these is included in your budget every year. It's included in the county financial statement. So if you're ever curious or want to see, those are places to look. They're on our website. And that's about as quick as I could do it. Any questions?
I think I have you. Okay. Did I just turn you on, Julie? No, wrong one. Okay, sorry.
So I know you went over these things, but I need it in layman's terms, okay? So what is the standard time for a payout on a bond? Like, does it go 5 years, 10 years, or is it on project? How do you determine that?
Oh, the length of the repayment?
Yeah, like when does the bond come up? Like when you take out a bond, you sell it, right?
We,
And then
we,
someone's gonna get money or
so.
you gotta pay
so-
it back. you
Yeah,
know, you
we,
borrow the
so we
money.
sell a group of them and
Mhm.
the payment terms are staggered. So that's determined based on the size of the transaction, and I couldn't tell you.
So it could be 1 year, it could be 10 years.
Well, we would be making debt service payments every year that would pay some of that down, but I don't know how they
Figure-
decide when there's large payments in the middle or large payments at the end. I think that's all tied to the interest rates and what's favorable. But that
So-
would be a question to ask.
Okay, the next group,
The next
gotcha.
group.
And I have a few questions I wrote down. And then, so are these bonds just generally, put out there for all projects or are they taken out per project?
What we've done here at the county is issued bonds for specific projects. The biggest one we did was when we built the sheriff's facility and the new health department and the EMA facility and the courthouse. We did that kind of as a group. We issued $175 million in bonds and we'll be paying those through 2047.
So there's never a time where you just get bonds on
No.
future, okay, that was an
No.
important one.
Um,
Go ahead.
Typically, these are used when you identify a project. They're not used just for cash flow.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
And I was going to say, Karen, we, the county board, have to vote on any bond issuance.
Yes, yes. You have to vote and then you have to have the ordinance that allows the transaction to move forward. So we're not proposing to do a new issuance of debt. The proposal will be to refund. So think of it, maybe the easiest way is refinancing existing debt to save us some money. It's not going to be a lump sum savings all on day one. It's going to be spread over the term of the bonds.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, my reason for asking was just because I wanted to understand the whole bond process, not, what the motives were or anything like that. I just wanted to know how it works so I could better understand it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie, you have a question next?
Okay, so in response to Dan's question, it says here that, it's typical for municipal bonds to become callable 8 to 10 years after issuance. And so Karen, callable, that means that's
can-
our opportunity.
To refinance.
Okay,
Or refund or pay.
pay, okay,
So
so,
we've never done that, pay them. We have.
be nice.
Well, yeah, well, we have refunded them though. So
Okay.
that's the first opportunity they're available for that.
So whether the bonds are 15 years or 30 years, if you win the lottery and you can pay those down at 8 years, you have the ability to do that.
If that's built in the offering statement, that's up to
Okay.
us to determine. And again, with the guidance from our financial advisor and the
And our-
underwriter.
Okay, and then my second question is, who are the attorneys or which attorneys are we using for the bond counsel and the disclosure counsel?
I can't recall the name of the firm we used last time. Prior to that, I think it was Burke, Warren, and
Do you want to just send that to Chuck and he can
Sure,
let everybody
sure.
know?
yeah.
It'd be nice to,
Actually, it's the
who's worked
same
with the
group that
county.
did the bonds, your recent transaction at the Forest Preserve. We used the same people to do our
Oh,
bond issuances.
okay.
And then the state's attorney is the local counsel. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so you appoint, and,
Do you remember who it was for the last one?
oh, you have to come to the,
Here.
For years, we used Ray Fricky, and I don't remember.
she's
what
just
Bert-
using-
And yeah, the last time we used Bert Odelson and his firm.
oh, okay, and so you mentioned local counsel.
That's us.
Okay, that's
That's
you.
actual ASAs.
Okay, and so we've got a bond counsel, a disclosure counsel, and then the state's attorney is our local counsel.
Yeah.
We don't always have a disclosure counsel.
Sometimes it's the same person.
Okay, okay. What does,
Separate.
Yeah.
okay, so disclosure does reviewing, producing, and sometimes the bond counsel does it all, then you're saying?
Right.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Chair Newquist.
Okay,
Oh, and
any other
another one,
questions for Karen?
who is Bert Olgolson for Dan?
I have to look up the name of his firm. You all know Bert Odelson. He does a lot of political work.
He's been here.
Odelson, Murphy, Frazier, and McGrath Limited.
Okay. All right, thank you,
Chair
Karen.
Newquist.
Appreciate it. Okay, number 2. Now we're going to hear about our potential debt service savings opportunities. Let me turn everybody's mics on here. Can you guys hit your buttons so I can? Yep, thank you. Mic on, let's do. Okay, you guys should all be on now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate you having us here on this beautiful election day. Looking forward to heading back home and going to cast my ballots. My name is Brian Lepensk. I am an executive director at Wells Fargo in our public finance group. I work out of our Chicago office, born and raised in Westmont, Illinois, so not too far from here. I work with a lot of Illinois issuers, state of Illinois, city of Chicago. Will County has been a longtime client of ours. We just also we're the underwriter for the Will County Forest Preserve on their transaction last year. Hopefully everybody that had viewed that saw it as a good transaction and will, give me give me props for that and not hold it against me if you feel otherwise. But also be happy to let these my colleagues here introduce themselves from Spear.
Good morning, everyone. I am Rafaelita McKenzie, and I am with Spear Financial. I am Senior Vice President at Spear Financial, and I've been working at Spear for over 25 years, and as long as I remember, I've been working with the county. I too work with a lot of local governments all over Illinois, counties, school district, parks, cities, villages, municipalities all over. Joliet, which is your neighbor and right here in the county. So a lot of extensive work we've done over the years for the county and for local governments within the county. I have Anthony here.
Yeah, thank you. Anthony Maselli with Spear Financial, also Senior Vice President, work with Rafaelita on the county's bond issuances, and she did a good kind of overview of who we work for and what we do as municipal advisor to the county. So a little bit different than Brian's role. Brian has been your underwriter. He sells the bonds to investors. We are essentially fiduciary on the transaction.
Well, thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Go
me.
ahead.
So the slide you have up on there right now is just another depiction of what Karen had gone through a few minutes ago. So I won't belabor this, but we highlight the the bond series that we're looking at and proposing or offering to the board and the county to as an opportunity to refinance and provide some savings to the county going forward. So if we can go to slide 6. So the series 2015 and series 2016, as you were talking about earlier, have a call date approaching in November of 2025. So that's about 10 years from their original issuance. So at that date, these bonds can be called and redeemed and refinanced with new bonds, called and redeemed at par. As you could see, if you were to issue new bonds in the current market with current market rates, but waiting until that call date, there's an opportunity to save money here. The top few lines of that chart on the left kind of show the summary of the bonds we're looking at refunding. So about $41 million of those bonds. The middle section, summary of refunding bonds, gives you an idea of how many new bonds we propose issuing, premium, and then how much would be deposited to what we call the escrow that would be used to refund the prior debt. Those other 3 rows there in that middle section give you a sense of the cost of that debt. All in true interest costs of 3.76, arbitrage yield, it's a fund tax issue on municipal debt of 3.54, and that's pricing it to the earliest call date. And then the present value of 1 basis point or 0.01% change in rates, how much that would impact the transaction. So every 1 basis point would be $20,000 plus or minus impact.
Can I
Yes.
ask a question?
course.
Just to clarify, what you're basically saying here is that our average interest rate now is 4.06%.
Mhm.
The bonds would be reissued at 3.54%, but the true cost with everything all in would be 3.76%.
Perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And-
Just wanted to clarify
I
that.
could just make another point. If you look at that chart to the right, the annual gross savings, there's 2 things to point out. So the comment was made earlier, do you have to issue bonds with a certain term? And you can issue with any term that you decide as the county. For this, what we're showing is keeping the term on the new bonds exactly the same as the old bonds. We're not extending any debt service. All we're doing this for is savings.
Got it.
So the other thing to point out is these bonds first become callable in November of this year, and then any day thereafter. So what we intend to do would be set up a situation where we can get ready to move forward with the refunding, and then as interest rates, cooperate or don't, we're able to execute the refunding or not if it's not advantageous to the county.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions? Okay, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yes, no problem. Slide 7, we wanted to look at, each maturity within those bond transactions to show the county that there are positive savings for each of those maturities. So we're not proposing to refund anything that would, end up costing the county more in the long run. Obviously, there's a couple that are very small savings in the current market. I know many of you probably watch the market. There's been a lot of fluctuation in interest rates. There's definitely some months until this transaction would come to market, and something we continue to watch and include anything that has positive savings, since this is, refunding at the call date, but obviously would, look to the county and its financial advisor for final decisions on that.
Yeah, and to Brian's point, the thing we can do is if there's a certain maturity that doesn't make sense to refund, we could leave that outstanding and not refinance that. You don't have to refund the bonds in whole. You can refund the bonds in part.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of I would say the kind of straightforward refinancing that we're bringing to the county. Any further questions on that?
Anybody? Okay, doesn't
Okay.
look like it.
So the next part of the transaction that we've identified is an opportunity to tender the Series 2020 bonds, which were issued as taxable bonds back in 2020. So we want to give you a little recap on what the county did back in 2020. Is I've heard many of you were not in this position at that time, so want to give you an idea of what happened back in 2020. President Trump's first administration, they passed the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, which eliminated in our tax exempt world the ability to advance refund on a tax exempt basis, tax exempt bonds. So that means, you know, we do have the call date at the 10-year date, but you can issue bond, you used to be able to issue tax exempt bonds well before that date and put that money aside, invest it in order for that to be there at the call date, and then issue new tax exempt bonds for savings. That went away in 2017. However, at the same time in 2020, during the COVID pandemic, interest rates, bottomed out and fell to all-time lows in both the tax exempt and taxable markets. Municipal markets started seeing opportunities to refund tax exempt bonds, higher coupon bonds with taxable bonds because tax exempt rates were so low. So this is an opportunity the county took advantage of, issuing taxable bonds at rates we may never see again. Going out through 2045, interest rates as low as 0.108% all the way up to 2.954%. This transaction refunded a portion of the 2016 bonds that we've just talked about that made sense and provided attractive savings to the county. All in all, on the $170 million bond transaction, that saved the county $20.5 million over the remaining life of this transaction on a gross basis. And if you were to present value back to when the bonds were issued in 2020, it was about $15 million. So if you can see on the right side, the county has already been benefiting from this transaction to the tune of about $820,000 to $850,000 a year. So through this fiscal year, the county will save $4.2 million so far, with another $16 million to go through 2045.
One thing to point out, so Brian mentioned that we made the decision to advance refund these bonds taxably rather than wait to the call date, which is coming up this year. And interestingly, if we had just waited to the call date, we'd actually have saved much less because of how low interest rates were at that time. So doing that transaction was a huge win at the time, and in turn leaves us this very interesting opportunity for a tender, which Brian will talk about.
Yep. And thanks for bringing that up. I did do the calculation using current rates. If we were to wait, if the county were to have waited till this year, and the savings would be less than half of what was achieved back in 2020. So on to the next slide. What is a tender and why should it be considered? First, a tender is where the county is making an offer to its existing bondholders that hold these taxable bonds to sell their bonds back to the county. The county will offer these bondholders a price that we typically see above current market values, which gives bondholders an incentive to quote unquote tender their bonds back to the county. Then in order to pay the purchase price of these tendered bonds, the county would issue tax exempt debt. The county is able to issue tax exempt debt because the bonds that the 2020 transaction refunded are now coming due, are being called this November 2025. So it's interesting, fun, IRS tax issue where you can now issue these bonds back into the tax exempt market and find some savings out of them. So we could do that along the same timelines as that first transaction we already set forth with the 2015s and the 2016s.
So let me jump in really quick, just to be clear on what a tender is. We've talked about a call option. That's your option to redeem your bonds that are outstanding. It's a certain set date. You have on that date and anytime after to redeem your bonds, whether that be to pay them off or refinance them. Tender is the opposite. Tender is the holder's option to sell it back to you. So in this interesting case, you've got a situation where somebody bought these bonds in 2020 at taxable rates, which were extremely low, and they may want to sell those bonds back to you so that they can get the money and then reinvest in a much higher market.
And the advantage for us essentially then is that we are kind of buying back the debt at a percentage on the dollar of the
Exactly.
original par. So
That's
we're
exactly.
redeeming the debt at a lower, not at a lower cost than we paid for it exactly because there was interest rates involved, but at a significant discount.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll show that discount, illustrate that discount in a few slides here too.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
You're spot on with that. I'll finish off on this slide, why the county should consider the tender. It's like you said, prices of these bonds are, currently trading or valued significantly below the par level, 100% that they were issued back in 2020. The new issued tax exempt bonds would result in lower annual debt service versus the 2020 transactions that's outstanding. Those 2020 bonds also were structured with a 10-year par call. However, waiting until that 2030 date wouldn't be as advantageous for the county because you wouldn't be able to buy them back at the 80 cents on the dollar. You'd be calling them at 100. And then the bond interest rates are so low that the county likely would not be able to achieve similar savings.
The 2020 bond interest
Yeah.
rates are so low, just to be
Exactly.
clear.
Can I ask another question?
course.
Sorry.
So we're here.
If the debt service, or I'm sorry, the coupon is that low,
Mhm.
how do we save money on the debt service by tendering the issue?
And that's to the point that you mentioned earlier is we're
Other than, so
they're able
the,
to purchase them back at 80 cents on the dollar. So you're purchasing them back at a much, a lower price. So you don't have to issue as much tax exempt debt to fully refund it.
okay, so that's where the savings
Yeah.
lie, not in the actual
Right.
debt service itself.
Correct.
It's the overall package.
Yeah, we're not going to beat the rates you have.
Right.
Exactly, exactly. The
And
only
that's-
way that this works is by getting them to sell them to you at a lower price than
Okay.
par.
And that's why it doesn't necessarily make sense to call them at par at a
Right.
future date.
Okay,
Other question is why bondholders would or would not want to tender. Some bondholders will find that opportunity to sell at a premium. There's other bondholders that, just won't want to participate. Those could be life insurance companies that have long investment horizons, or they're just unable to book a loss and sell their bonds at 80 cents on the dollar. So that's why we never see 100% of bondholders tender. It's typically in the 20 to 40% of outstanding debt.
And that goes back to this being their option. You put it out there, but it's their option to participate or not.
is there a threshold of people that you need to tender to make this financially advantageous? Or maybe is there a threshold at which it would not be financially advantageous? I don't know why people wouldn't tender them, but there's reasons, like you said.
And we'll get into this next section, perfect timing, is there are some additional costs to running a tender. Some of those are fixed, some of those are based on the actual transaction occurring and having success. I know we were talking about legal firms earlier. There would be a marginal increase in the amount of legal fees because there are a few more tender documents that have to be produced. So the attorneys will charge a little bit extra for that. Can't say exactly how much that was, but it's not in the tens of 20s of thousands of dollars by no means. Then there's also an information and tender agent. This is the firm that would go out and identify as many bondholders as possible. Not all of them are publicly available that we could find on like a Bloomberg terminal. They'll go through other forms of research in order to find those. For this size transaction, we, based on our past experience, that cost is about $12,800. So that'd be a fixed cost if we went into this. That would, and 0% tender, that money would have to be paid. And then there's a dealer manager fee, which Wells Fargo would also serve that role, but that fee is contingent based on the amount of bonds that are tendered.
Yeah, it's so,
If
go ahead, please.
if I may say something and given all of these points that Brian highlighted in terms of the costs, the savings that the county would see would be net of all of those costs.
Right.
And so that would be incorporated into the transaction.
And if you think about this from a worst case scenario, we don't know who's going to tender going into this. But if we went forward and we either didn't get anybody to tender or not enough to make it financially feasible, or rates even change to the point where it just didn't
Right.
make any sense, the risk of the county is essentially that 12,800. That's that fee
Okay.
you paid to that information agent to find, and they did their job. They're not contingent on the transaction going through.
Okay. And the $2.50, is that per $100 a par?
Per thousand.
Per $1,000 a
And
par?
that's,
Okay.
we we've seen that in a range, so. Just like our underwriting fee, that'd be kind of negotiated. as we-
It's minimal. I mean, you know,
Mm.
okay, thank you.
No problem. Slide 11 gives you kind of a sense of the timeline of a tender. You know, starting with, we put a voluntary EMA notice out to the market. This is where all your disclosure is processed through MSRB. This kind of gives investors the heads up that the county is considering this transaction and starts giving them the chance to find where their bonds are. They might be in different portfolios. We've definitely found that as talking on other transactions where a bondholder is like, well, I have them in 5 different portfolios. I got to figure out where they are. And then during the time between that and when the tender is launched, we prepare documents, launch the tender at the same time that the county would publish its preliminary official statement for the sale of the new bond transaction. And that's when everything kind of hits go, and our desk will start reaching out to as many bondholders that we can, get feedback. 5 days into the tender, the county, and we would post a pricing notice that would give bondholders the spread to treasuries, which then would back into a price on the bonds that they would be tendering at. And then the tender would expire 10 days after launch. You know, within a day of expiration, the county would price the new bonds that would pay off the old bonds and accept the tender bonds. And the key, and I put it in yellow, is the county's not obligated to accept any of the tender bonds. There's really no risk to the county. So if all the bonds come in tendered, market rates change, and it no longer makes financial sense to the county can reject all of the bonds that are tendered. And we've seen that on quite a few transactions where issuers have rejected those bonds. It's not held against you by investors at all, because they understand they're in buying and selling all the time, so they understand the market's move.
And again, the financial risk is the costs you've already incurred that aren't contingent on the sale,
Mhm.
which is the information agent.
Slide 12 just kind of goes over some of the typical tender documentation. We hit on this a little bit. I won't go through each piece in detail, but mentioned on this prior slide, the notice of the potential tender. There's a dealer manager agreement, similar, just an agreement between the county and would be Wells Fargo. Letter to the bondholders to let them know that, outlining the tender offer, and then the invitation to tender. The cover of which example is there on the right. It lays out the schedule and lets them know, all bondholders know exactly what, are included in the tender. Now we kind of get into the fun stuff, why you should do this too. There is a financial benefit to the county. So in the blue columns, those are the two bonds that we talked about earlier. In the red column is, a hypothetical tender of the 2020 bonds, assuming 30% of the outstanding bondholders were to tender their bonds to the county. So since there's about 150 million of those bonds outstanding, if 30% tender, that'd be just around 47.5 million. Because the bonds will be purchased back at a lower price than par, the county would only need to issue $35.5 million of new bonds in order to pay the $38 million tender costs. Kind of as you go further down, again, it's kind of set up as like the prior slides, the cost of the new transaction. Now, as you rightly asked, how are we refunding bonds that were issued in, under 3% with bonds that are going to cost over 4%? Gets to that, lower price for the tender. And so if 30% of the bonds are redeemed, the county could expect to save approximately $4.5 million over the remaining life of those 2020 bonds, or almost $3 million on a present value basis. And over to the right, we show a combined annual savings the county could expect if 30% of each maturity were to tender. Obviously, that could change. Some maturities might get 80%, some might get 10, depending on those holders of the bonds. But without knowing the exact, we wanted to give the county an idea of what it would look like.
Now, you know,
So,
Denise, do I need to,
sorry.
what number are you? Sorry.
7.
Let's see. Sorry, guys, I'm really slow at this. Okay.
It's 30% roughly what we'd be looking for in terms of response to the tender.
30% for taxable bonds has been the average over the last 3 years. So we don't like to over promise. Look in the 20 to 40%. We tell our clients if they're not going to be happy with 20%, then may not be the right opportunity. But this is, since it can be paired with another transaction that will most likely save the county money no matter what, and you would go forward with a $40 million transaction that gives you the opportunity. Even if you get 10%, you're still saving the county, dollars.
Okay, thank you.
And I have to ask, why the loss in 2035? I'm assuming it's got to do with maturities.
Yeah, so there's not a maturity in that. Well, there is maturity, but a smaller maturity. So there's just kind of the nature of higher coupons on tax exempt bonds. And that's kind of eaten up with the savings from the other transaction. There are ways to structure so we can, hopefully minimize that as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anybody else have questions? Okay.
Slide 14, we go, maturity by maturity on that 2020 transaction to show you, to lay out exactly what we were talking about here. So the dark blue columns are the bonds that we're looking to offer to tender. The light blue calculates, illustrates how the tender price is determined. So that market value, the closer bonds are, in the $90 range, going all the way down to $71.50 for those 2045 bonds. We then add a tender premium price based on a spread to their yield, and then come up with a tender offer price, so well below the par value of the bonds, which allows the county to take advantage. And then on a maturity by maturity basis, all of these provide positive savings. And what we like to show is a break even to this 2030 call date that these bonds have. Going out through 2033, none of those bonds would be able to produce positive savings if you were to wait till the call date. Through 2030, you'll never have an opportunity to refund those bonds. The tender gives county the opportunity to refinance. 31 through 33, as I mentioned, require negative rates to get you positive savings. 2034 and onward, rates would need to drop significantly by over 2% on most of these maturities, and then out in 2045 just by at 1.66%. That would put us back into, well, actually below the historical lows that we saw back in 2020 when these bonds were actually issued on tax, if they were issued on tax exempt basis.
It presents a very unique opportunity to take a transaction that was very successful in 2020 and gain additional savings where we wouldn't otherwise.
Right.
Because if this opportunity goes away for any reason, or just don't get the bonds tendered or market rates change, it doesn't, and based on, Brian's analysis, there just really isn't another opportunity to take savings on this because of how low those interest rates are in the 2020 bonds.
Okay.
And that could beg the question of, why is this the right time to do it? And it's mainly an interesting time in the market in the last 3 years where taxable, U.S. Treasury bond rates are elevated. And meanwhile, tax exempt rates have not increased as much as taxable rates. So you're able to able to buy these bonds back at a lower price because taxable rates are high, pushing down the price of the taxable bonds. But then you're also able to issue tax exempt bonds. It's still pretty low rates just because of this oddity in the market. So if that relationship were to revert back to an average, savings could go away a little bit.
So we have a fairly tight time frame, correct, under which this would be?
You actually have some time. We thought it was very prudent of your staff to get this in front of you as soon as possible, so we can answer any questions that might come up. The quickest that the county could sell bonds would be probably the end of July, and then deliver those bonds and close on them in mid-August. So that's 90 days prior to the November 15th call date.
Right.
But
And
that
Right,
doesn't mean
because
you
we-
have to. It's, yeah,
We can't do this before the call date, correct?
correct. You could do it. So it's called a current refunding. You could do it 90 days prior to the call date. So around August 16th.
So by the time they close.
Would be the
then-
earliest the bonds could close, yeah.
Okay. Questions, anybody? Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That was a very thorough presentation, must say.
I could go on for much more.
Mary, do we need to, there's a resolution here. Do we need to vote on this or in our agenda? I'm a little confused by that. What, Marcy? Sorry.
Is there an actual resolution or just click on it? Do you see anything?
Well, it's basically, it just says they'll present, but it's like adopted by the Will County Board on this day, April 1st. So,
So as Karen Hennessy indicated, you will need to authorize this transaction. There will need to be a resolution go to county board. There will also require a public hearing to be held at that same meeting. So if you do want to do this, county board does have to act on it.
so is this something that we should vote on in committee as a recommendation to move forward?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Does anybody want to make a motion? Denise, anybody second?
Second, but I also have a question.
Okay.
So we would motion today to bring this forward. Does it then go to executive?
Everything goes to executive because just improving the county board agenda, it necessarily goes to executive.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we should motion to move forward with this and put it on the executive committee?
You just make your motion to move it forward like you would any other
Okay,
resolution.
Are you?
okay, so I'll
you good with
second.
that? Okay. Do we have a previous or do we want a roll call?
I think we had
Might as well do a
Who's
roll
got a
call.
roll
Oh, right. We
call?
need a clean roll anyway. Oh, I'm
Yes.
so sorry. Hold on one sec. Let me turn you on. What number is she again?
12.
12. Thank you. There we go. Okay. Sorry.
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Butler, Ortiz, Winfrey, Newquist.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving on, we'll just finish the rest of new business and then we'll go back to the discussion of salaries. Number 3, transferring funds within the health department budget to fund temporary contracted staff. Can I get a motion? Discussion, question?
Discussion, yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to, somehow I got it.
Here, you want to see mine?
I'm trying to pull it up again. Back to my-
Here's the resolution if that's what you wanted to look at.
Okay. Just. Okay. Whoops, nope. Got it. I had to go out to a different link. Thank you. Okay. Is there anyone here that wants to?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, as I understand it, this is just since we are hiring some contract employees to fill in the gaps while we're looking to hire permanent employees. But if we have someone here, Good morning. Let me turn your mics on. Oh, that's 9 and 10. Okay, now give me just 1 sec. I gotta turn you guys on. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Elizabeth Bellotta with the Will County Health Department and Denise Bergen. Yes, this is, as you had stated, we do have difficulty sometimes hiring full-time staff. So in the interim, we have brought on some temporary contractual individuals. Once we hire a full-time staff, then we would release the individuals that are contractual and then go with the full-time. So we just need to move some money around for that reason.
Any questions about that? Okay, thank you very much.
Second Berkowitz.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Number 4, appropriating grant funds in the health department budget for suicide prevention. Can I get a second? Discussion, questions? Dan, do you have a question? Oh, I did not speak up if I missed you. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, can I get a previous row?
Previous.
Can I get a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Sherry?
Wait, go ahead, Julie. You had a
Yeah,
question?
yeah. So, Elizabeth, I had a question about this. So here's a resolution, and it indicates that most of the money is for expenses, salary, office supplies. What I am curious about is what the service aspect of this. We bring somebody on. Are you increasing program availability or?
Sure. So this is a program through our behavioral health division. Dr. Burke is the one who is in charge of it. So what we do is we work with local PD, fire departments, and dispatch centers. I remember, I don't know, Chief, Jungles, Dan Jungles
Yeah.
was here before talking about peer support for police and fire.
Mm-hmm.
So in this case, these are individuals or municipalities or agencies that maybe are smaller and can't afford to implement some of their own behavioral health or mental health training. So our staff go through this training and we bring on some contractors to do the training. Then we go and we try to train them so they have peer support within their own departments. It also provides for gun locks and a variety of other things, but the focus is on suicide prevention for first responders through their peers. So it's a lot of training of the individuals so then they can then be there in case anyone in their department needs them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so
Great
we've
program.
reached out and we do meet and greets with all the different PDs and the fire departments and dispatch, and then we try to set up the trainings with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on, let me put your.
So these people are stationed like at the police station, or they don't go out with the people? They don't write out on calls, or?
I'm not sure on that because it is their peers. So unfortunately, Dr. Burke is sick today, but I believe that it is actually their peers, their individuals in their department. So yes, they would be with them when they go out in the field. Some may be individuals that don't go out in the field, but I do believe it's a variety of the different individuals that work for a department, whether it be fire, police, and with the dispatch, they're not going out, but their actual peer that is in the office with them.
When you say a peer, it's a mental health worker.
No, it's
No.
one of their own staff that have been
Trained.
trained.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And the employees that we hire and that we have contracted with have police experience. They are from the Chicago Chicago Police Department or other local police departments, because it was important for them to have the police experience and the mental health experience.
Okay, any other questions?
I just want to comment that this is a very important program because, you know, quite often, sometimes the fire, they're first on the scene, sometimes even before the police get there. So any additional support and training that they receive, I know is greatly appreciated. Those are can be very escalated situations, and just to have this training and this support, I think is good for everyone, including the people who put their lives at risk to come out when we call 911. So I really appreciate this program. Thank you.
With their continued exposure to critical incidents, it is important for them to have someone to talk to that they can relate with. That's why the peer program is so important. Yes, Ms. Bushwitz.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, number 5, appropriating grant funds in the health department budget for respiratory surveillance. Motion Winfrey,
Second, Berkowitz.
questions, discussion? Julie?
All right. Is this for tracing then? Is this continued contact tracing?
This is a surveillance. So it is a grant that, unfortunately, this is one of the grants that has been identified as could potentially be impacted by the federal government cuts. So this is for surveillance, it's for prevention, it's for response, and for outbreak initiatives. So yes, we have communicable disease investigators. That's what it mostly is for, and support staff. But it's for any respiratory illness and for other public health significant events. So I think it was about last month, we had numerous norovirus outbreaks in nursing homes and assisted living villages. And so the individuals from our communicable disease investigate all of these. They talk to individuals, they work with the facilities to make sure they can contain it and what is the best method of containment, and then how to recover from it. What do you have to do? What do you have to put in place so that people can get out of their rooms and start interacting again? What improvements do you need in your infectious disease protocol so that it doesn't recur? So that's what this grant was for, correct?
So then that would include measles as well. So you have measles, the
Flu,
norovirus.
RSV,
Okay.
just any type
Okay.
of respiratory plus other public health significant event is what the grant states.
So I'm wondering, will any of these funds be shared with the Sunny Hill TB clinic? Because I know the TB cases are rising. They have a separate staff, so are we also helping them? Because TB will also kill people, especially when it's unidentified.
So this grant is specifically for the health department. However, our communicable disease division tracks and monitors and responds to any type of outbreak in the community, in the county. So it could be at Sunny Hill, it could be in any municipality. So yes, our CD staff do work on TB cases, on measles cases, on everything.
Okay, so, but you're not working with the clinic. I mean, do they ever give you TB cases then to follow up? I was under the impression you're two separate organizations.
Oh, correct. We are two separate organizations, but our epidemiology department gets all of the reportable communicable diseases from the state health department. So it doesn't matter if it's TB or measles or RSV or flu. So, and yes, we work very well with TB. They're in our building. Our epidemiologist works with Joyce, who is the director of TB, but it all comes through the state reporting system, the communicable diseases that our division has to work on.
Okay, and you may not know this, but do they have the ability then to get this grant?
Julie,
The
I think we're
TB?
getting a little off track here because
okay.
we don't have, they're not part of our agenda or, you know, we don't have any information really about.
But I'm asking, Elizabeth works with them.
Now we can answer that.
Yeah.
This particular
you.
grant was targeted to local health departments. So every health department across the state of Illinois received funding under this program.
And you don't want to duplicate efforts because the health department covers the communicable disease in Will County, whether it be TB or measles. So we already have a system and a staff in place to address those and to investigate and follow up on those.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question?
It did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anyway, we have a motion and a second. Is there a previous? Well, okay, then let's do a roll.
Can I do a previous?
No, you made the second, right? Do we have a second? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, thank you both. Oh, they left already. Okay, number 6, final 2024 levy numbers for fiscal year 2025. So this is basically, Rashawn's gonna fill us in here, but as I understand it, this is basically just adjusting the levy for the actual numbers that have come in now versus our estimated levy numbers when we passed it. Oh, thank you. I thought she was still on. Thanks. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is correct. So I won't go through all of this. I'll just touch on highlights as to what changed from the estimate, if you had time to look at it. So the estimated levy that was approved back in October was 156.4 million. The final numbers came in at 157 million. The exemptions and abatements, that number changed about 159 million. That went up to 3.2 from 3 million. So the overall net EAV is 30.5 billion. New property went up about 122 million to 457 million from 335 million. So our estimated limiting rate was 0.5101, and the final rate is 0.5145, which includes the supplemental tax. And there's a little paragraph on what that is. Then on the second page of the slide there, the Community Mental Health Board, their estimated levy was 8 million, and it came in just a little over 8 million, and their final rate is 0.0263%. And so this is what the final levy is, and it has been certified and on file with the county clerk's office.
Thank you. Can I get a motion? How about a second?
Second, Berkowitz.
Do we need a roll call since there's only 4 of us? Let's just do a roll call if that's okay. Oh, sorry, Dan, I didn't see that. Let me turn you on. Yeah, he's number 4. My apologies. Okay.
So on the 708 board, when it says it went from 8,000 to 8,029, so does that mean that they issued their?
So what that means is, so when we estimate the levy back in October, that's an estimate. So then the tax is extended, and these are the final numbers that come in March that say, hey, you extended 8 million and this is what you got back. So the 29,000, yes, the 29,000, yes.
I think.
Any other questions? Okay, why don't we just go ahead and do a roll call if that's okay?
Before we do that, okay, Rashawn, so we're not increasing the tax, are we? What, I guess, let's just,
So
what is our vote doing?
no, you're not increasing the tax because you've already
Mhm.
approved that. So this is just accepting this report.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Berkowitz?
Oh, wait a minute, I need to,
12.
thanks. You think I'd know that by now?
Yes.
Berkowitz?
Yes.
Butler? Ortiz? Winfrey? Newquist?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Okay,
I'll stay here for the
yes,
next.
please. Number
3 on the
7,
agenda.
appropriating sponsorship funds in the workforce services budget. Do we have a second?
Second, Berkowitz.
All right, well, why don't we let Rashawn tell us a little bit about it and then we'll go to questions.
So these are sponsorship funds. We had one that was submitted, I believe it was last month. And this was for their Pathways to Professions program. That event has happened already. And so these are the remaining funds that the sponsors had contributed that are being appropriated in the workforce services budget.
Okay, but they've essentially already provided them to us and we
Yes.
may have spent them in some cases. We just need to add them officially to the budget.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a previous role or questions? Let me ask that first. All right, previous,
Previous role.
second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 8, authorizing use of contingency funds for a Medicaid Medicare consultant.
So this is requesting to, of course, this is not budgeted. It wasn't in the 2025 budget. And I do have Sunny Hill, the director from Sunny Hill, as well as the health department. So what this request is asking to use contingency funds to so that both departments can issue an RFP to hire a consultant to come in to help them look at best practices for Medicaid and Medicare reimbursements to make sure that they're maximizing and getting the max that they can receive in reimbursements on revenue.
Okay, can we get a motion and a second on this and then we can go to questions if we need to?
I motion, we
Can I get a
open
second?
this item.
Okay, thank you. All right, discussion, Julie?
Yes, so I've got a few questions about this. Typically, the way I'm reading this, it doesn't tell us where the money is going. So is it going to a certain budget line or it?
So.
And Marcy might want to join this conversation. No? Okay.
So normally,
Versus like, no way.
Okay, all right.
and to answer your question, County Board Member Berkowitz, normally it would be transferred into a department's budget, but because it is both Sunny Hill and the Health Department, we're requesting that the payment can be directly from contingency. However, it would make more sense to put it in a line item to transfer that so that for reporting purposes, we can track that and go directly back to whether it be the Sunny Hill department budget or the health department budget.
So it's 150,000. We've got two different entities. One is in the corporate budget, but one is in
And special funds.
right.
Mhm.
But we're combining them. And I don't,
We're hiring, we would like to go out for an RFP to hire a consultant to help both departments. So I understand one is in the corporate fund and one is in the special fund. However, it will serve both entities.
but it's all coming out of the county board contingent and the health department should not be coming out of the county board contingent.
Well, you would be,
So I think we need two separate resolutions. If they're supposed to come out of two different contingency funds, no?
no, because there's only one contingency fund, which is in the county board's budget.
So
I guess
that,
I'm just a little
So,
confused.
so,
Yeah.
so to help simplify this, what this
Oh.
request is
Marcy, sorry.
to, whether it's Sunny Hill or the health department, we're requesting to use the contingency funds, which is in county board's budget. So this RFP, it's the decision of the board, once this is approved, could be transferred out of the county board's budget, or it could remain in the county board's budget in other professional services. So it could go from contingency to another professional service line in which that could be paid whatever the amount. If it's 150 or comes in less than that. Does that make sense?
So Dan, I just have a comment and then did you want to speak? Julie, were you done?
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
I was just waiting for your feedback.
Okay, so myself personally, I think this is absolutely the right thing to do. And part of that's based on my own personal experience. So my sister has been a biller in a hospital and a home health service for many, many years. And I can tell you from listening to her all these years, Medicare and Medicaid billing is so unbelievably complicated. The rules change every year. I mean, she's basically a dedicated biller. I mean, she has to go to continuing ed classes. I mean, they need to get like certified on the various computer programs that they use. And everything changes so much that if we're not following proper practice, we could be leaving literally millions of dollars of money on the table. So to me, $150,000 is a small price to pay to potentially realize much greater savings going forward. Dan, did you want to speak? Okay, let me turn your mic on. You know, it would be helpful if they put these things in order. There you are. Okay, thank you.
So I just want to be clear on all this. We're actually just voting to move it forward to the executive board, correct? This
Yeah.
resolution, okay. And then this is an annual $150,000
No, this is not this is not an annual, this is one time.
one time.
Mhm.
And this is to advise our workers on proper billing practices. And have we been losing money for not being able to, sorry about that. Have we been losing money trying to bill and not being able to collect money from Medicare for services that we provide?
I would defer to the directors of both the Sunny Hill and Health Department to answer that question, and they can give you a little bit of insight on what they're seeing.
My guess is we might not know. I mean, that's part of the reason for having the consultant, correct?
Well, if you're asking for a consultant, there must be a problem. I just want the
Yep.
problem to be identified. If
That's a
there's a
good
loss of
question.
revenue, I'm all for it. I just wanted to hear from somebody to tell me what that was. And
And the,
I like to make a responsible decision here, you know,
Good
so.
question.
and the key here is to help maximize. So that would be to make sure that we're receiving the dollars that we are supposed to receive when we're billing.
We do have one of the heads, a couple of heads here of those
Can we-
departments that could come up and
If
talk
one of you
about it.
guys could answer that question, yes, please come up.
I guess I was wondering, how did you get to that amount, 150,000? Because that's kind of part of it, right? How did-
Well, let's hear what they say.
No, who cares? So I can answer questions about the billing practices for the health department. Again, Denise Bergen, Will County Health Department. Of course, we see a very high population of Medicaid clients, well over 50%. We also have Medicaid, Medicare dual eligibility. We are a federally qualified health center, meaning we have special requirements about how we bill. We're reimbursed on an encounter basis for Medicaid and Medicare. We're also a community mental health center. We have special rules for billing those services. And of course, as an FQHC and as a certified mental health center, we do have enhanced Medicaid reimbursement rates, or we have in the past. I'm not certain of the future. We do, of course, We do monitor changes very closely. We are very proactive in the documentation
And-
coming out.
I didn't mean to suggest that you
Oh,
guys
no.
weren't, sorry.
But of course, we are always looking for best practices. We monitor our aging very closely. We are always researching claims.
And a lot of our revenue comes from Medicare and Medicaid at behavioral health and at our community health center. So Medicaid is approximately what, 7 million annually, and Medicare is about 170,000. So, you know, those are, that's a lot of our revenue. So if we are missing something, you know, because of changes or the complicated billing, then we would like to enhance it and capture even additional revenue.
And certainly, we did not issue this request. We did not submit it, but we are very happy to be a part of it. Any enhancement to our revenue, any, advice on changes we can make to improve our reimbursements, we are much appreciative.
Yeah.
Oh, can you put your mic on and I can, thank you. Hold on, bear with me 1 minute here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and likewise, Sunny Hill is Medicare and Medicaid certified. We're dual certified as well. So this really is an effort to kind of look at our current practices and see if we're missing something. Shelley, as the finance director, can kind of speak more to the overall issues that she encounters daily and kind of, that's what we rely on. Our Medicare payments are predetermined because they are based on the PDPM system. So that the Medicare is pretty straightforward. Again, we also want to look at our overall process because we want to make sure that we're maximizing in terms of what our returns are, but also we want to make sure that our documentation and our overall process is what it should be, because what's happening and occurring currently is OIG is undertaking a lot of RAC audits, and what they're looking at is months, years after a resident has actually been a resident at the facility, they're looking to recoup money. And particularly, we're going back a number of years right now. I do have a number of RAC audits that are currently in review. So again, we want to make sure that our practices are what they should be, to make sure on the front end that we're maximizing our returns, but also to protect ourselves on the back end to make sure that the OIG is not coming back to look for reimbursement.
Maggie, can you tell us what OIG is?
The Office of the Inspector General.
Thank you.
So you're saying that they've actually come back and tried to collect money from you based on overpayment from Medicare or Medicaid?
Oh, hold on, I need to turn your mic back on.
Or from, go ahead.
Yeah, currently I have a number of residents that are under review from prior stays that they've had at the facility, and those are considered RAC audits, and they are obviously, they originate from OIG, and they are, looking for quite substantial amounts of money that we have to continually process and look at and substantiate that we have provided the necessary documentation and support for the fact that the care and services that were rendered were actually rendered. We have not seen this. This is a newer phenomena for us. It's been happening probably maybe, Shelley, the last year or so, right? Yeah, but we knew this was in the pipeline. This was inevitable in light of everything that occurred with COVID. OIG and HFS is going to be looking to recoup some monies, and they are looking at past stays and, analyzing those and questioning, some of the documentation and the provision of certain documentation to support our services. So I don't see this going away. I think this will just get worse.
So can you give me some sort of estimate on how much money they have asked us to pay back?
I'm going to refer that to Shelley, but it's some of the amounts are pretty substantial.
You're good. You're
Okay,
on.
I'm Shelley Falcons, Director of Finance. Right now, we're probably around, it's not too much. It's about $10,000 in Med A. And there's ongoing claims they're looking at, and it's usually managed care. So we have regular Medicare, and then we have managed care through the insurance company. So United Healthcare is through Medicare. There's several different managed care companies that fall under Medicaid and Medicare. So you have your original Medicaid, Medicare, and then all your managed cares. And like you were saying, it's very complex. You're constantly checking claims. Danny said the same thing. It's,
So you feel this is escalating?
yes.
Did you put in this request?
No.
No.
Do you know who put this request in? Do we know who? Oh, boy.
Grab a mic, Mike.
Before you go, Maggie, the OIG, is that under the state of Illinois or is that a federal?
That's federal.
Okay, so that would be NIH or where does it go? Where does it lead up to?
I think they're their own. right?
I think they're
Just, they run.
their own standalone kind of
Okay,
oversight, kind of regulatory body.
Okay.
Underneath the governor.
all right.
Yeah, we also, when we apply for public aid for most of our residents, which is a very complex process as well. We get assigned caseworkers, different caseworkers. You never have the same person. You fight with them. You send documentation. They say they don't get it. The process is delayed months and months and months. So we're delayed revenue. Sometimes there's a time frame that they might not pay. So then you're fighting, trying to get that. It's just if any consultant has any advice, resources that we could use to make the process even better. Just the process in general will help and make things run a little bit more smoothly.
And we have to remember too that Sunny Hill, 65-70% of our residents are Medicaid. So the inordinate amount of time that the finance office spends or extends dealing with like getting people on Medicare or on Medicaid, it's extensive. So any, like Shelley said, just to reiterate, any kind of insights or nuggets of wisdom that we can glean, because she's obviously been doing this a very long time. I have too, the system itself, I mean, at the federal level is looking to recoup some of these funds. And, again, I do see these RAC audits continuing. And again, some of them have been for smaller amounts like $10,000, but some of them have been much higher than that. And we've been able to refute, but again, the amount of time and effort and documentation that it takes to do that is extensive.
So what is the highest number that you've been asked to refund?
Overall, it's 10,000, like for a couple different claims.
Okay.
And they just kind of started right after COVID. That COVID things were kind of, public aid would just approve everything was kind of, and now they're kind of looking at everything and I think just trying to recoup whatever they can.
I get it.
Like-
I'm not trying to steer this one way or the other. I'm a fiscal conservative. I understand that government, we're supposed to, we have to pay for certain services. And it could be in the best interest to save money or recoup money. So I get all that.
Yeah.
I just want to know what it is. I want to know how much it is. I want to make sure that we're going to spend only as much as needed. Okay, so you had something you had to say, Mike?
Member Butler, you just asked who put in the request, and the executive's office, we meet with our departments and the health department on a very regular basis. This is something that we've been keeping our eye on for a little bit in time with the changes that are popping up in the federal government. We thought, it's going to be something we're going to have to address sooner rather than later. And credit where credit is due, Lita Richmond was the one who spurred us on to coming forward this month to start the process on this, because these are really important services that we're providing. We have a nursing home that is ranked the third best in the state of Illinois. And that's really something we should all be proud of here, and to keep it that way and to maximize our receipts and to make sure that the funding we need going forward is available to us.
So the executive put it forward?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Can you come back up? I had some questions for you if you're done.
Thank you.
Jim, excuse me, Dan, can I let Jim speak?
Would you like to address what was said?
I believe
Fine.
that's why he's up here. Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So we did discuss this at leadership.
And Maggie gave us a very good presentation back in January, if I'm not mistaken. It was middle of January or something like that. And they do a great job out there. But, again, I believe it was slide 20. It says that Sunny Hill's losing $3.5 million a year. Comes out to about roughly, don't quote me on the exact numbers, but I believe $57 per bed per night we lose. So any way that we can go out and recapture some of these dollars, or at least make sure that we look at Sunny Hill, because I think this is just a beginning piece of it. Because maybe one of the things that we did talk about is where can we raise our daily rates? What are things that we can do there so that we're not losing $3.5 million a year at Sunny Hill? I know it's a great facility, it's a great asset to our county in that, but what we got to do is we've got to turn some of these ships around. I mean, we're losing money there, the RNG plant, things like that. So anything that we can do to actually, and this is really nothing more than what I would call in the business world, you're doing an audit. You're trying to find out places where you can actually save some money. So hopefully if we spend this $150,000 or less than $150,000, we can find out areas where, hey, we weren't billing the right amount. We can now bill more. We can maybe increase our charge to whether it's the Fed or the state. And I don't know your business, but all I know is that we can always go into any type of organization and you can usually find some monies that can be saved if you bring in somebody that's an expert or a consultant to help us find that. So that was why we discussed it. That's why we recommended it. And I think it's a great idea. I mean, one of two things, either we're going to learn that our staff is doing a phenomenal job and there's no money to be saved, so we're going to have to look at other areas, or they're doing a phenomenal job, but the government keeps changing the rules. And we just need somebody that can actually be there to be the referee and say, hey, time out. Let's go over. We got to adjust over here that the government regulation is out of control. So, and especially in the healthcare, I think, Maggie, I think you said this is one of the most highly regulated industries aside from nuclear power plants. That's your quote. That was your quote. So I couldn't remember it. So thank you very much. So I think it's a good idea that we move forward and look into this. So
I agree. We need to support our staff, and Sunny Hill is unlike any other community out there. I've been in dozens, and when you go to some of these communities that have Medicaid, it's just depressing. You get a lot of people that they don't communicate. There's no stimulation. Sunny Hill is extraordinary. And if you haven't been there, it's clean. The staff is incredible. The living accommodations are superior to everything I've ever seen. And this includes even in DuPage County. But again, I think this identifies the pressures that our administration and the people behind the scenes have. And I think that if you've identified this need, we definitely need to bring it forward and give you the resources that will help you. Because at the end of the day, everything you do benefits our community. And I do know that from what I've seen, it's unique and extraordinary out there. So yeah, I definitely do support this. Thank you.
Dan, you have another question for us?
I would love to continue. Thank you. So this 150,000 is to be considered like a fund that's drawn upon as needed by the consultant. Is that correct?
Correct. So the funds would be allocated, whether it be Sunny Hills.
If they have to work
Sunny Bills,
10 hours, 15 hours,
correct.
whatever, they pay out of this fund until it's gone, and then that's it. So
Correct.
that's why it's not repeating. Okay.
Yes.
And then the value of this is that, I've seen that there's some extra billing coming down, causing trouble, for some of our staff, and we're afraid that we could be losing extra money. So we need a consultant to help us navigate the evolving system. Is that correct? So we're, in essence, we're training our staff to be better for the future. So this is something that we anticipate getting our staff up and running, and then they'll be able to pursue on their own afterwards.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we get a previous?
Previous role.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. How about a second? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Just for clarity, would you like for me to move this forward with the funds being transferred to Sunny Hill and that will go forward to the executive?
I would say
The
wherever
the
you
resolution.
think is,
Okay.
do we have to specify or can we just,
Make a motion to move it forward to the executive committee.
that's what we just did. Yeah, I would say, Rashawn, that, I mean, I don't know that if we don't need to specify,
Okay.
we'll leave it up to your discretion. Is that okay with you guys as to where we put the
sounds-
money? Okay, thank you.
you.
And number 9, appropriating an enterprise zone payment in the land use department budget. How about a second? All right, questions, discussion?
Can we have more information on this?
So I can provide a little background information on this. So this is the first payment. So the county has the Joliet Enterprise Zone and companies within that zone that want to do projects. The county has a fee for that. So this is the first payment of fees that we're seeing come through. And so that will be appropriated in the land use department, and there, as companies within that enterprise zone have projects, a fee will be billed, and you'll see a resolution come forth to appropriate the funds.
I don't see anyone from land use here. I'm just wondering, where is this enterprise zone? Thank you, Mike. I know it says Joliet, but Joliet's a big place.
Oh, hold on, thank you. Give me 1 sec, Mike, I gotta turn. Okay,
The Joliet Arsenal Enterprise Zone is an enterprise zone that is administered by the county. It runs in the Arsenal Development Corridor. Exxon, the refinery down there, is a huge player in the enterprise zone, Centerpoint Warehousing. It runs up now. The board approved a change up to Bolingbrook and Plainfield last year. And so this is, we issue sales tax exemption certificates for building materials. And so one of the properties that is now in the Bolingbrook region, RJW Warehousing, to issue those certificates in 2025, the county is charging an administrative fee, which is allowed by state law, up to $50,000. And this is the maximum fee that we can charge. And see, these are not taxpayer dollars at all. This is for a sales tax exemption. The private company pays this. We administer the sales tax exemption. Then they receive an exemption on all their building materials. So this company is saving a little under $1 million for a $50,000 administrative fee. It's great for development. The Arsenal Development Enterprise Zone is one of the most popular in the state. It is maybe the most successful in the state. And so this money will then be transferred over to land use and help out their community development department, as it's not taxpayer dollars. The projects are very inconsistent. We don't want it to be part of an ongoing operating budget, but this is just something to help support Martha's efforts over there.
so where's, oh, go ahead.
But okay. It didn't say Arsenal. I would have known exactly.
Oh,
if it had
sorry.
said Arsenal. So, you mentioned RJW Warehousing in Bolingbrook.
I believe this one's in, the corporate headquarters is in Bolingbrook. I think this project is in Bolingbrook, but they also have warehousing in Centerpoint too.
Okay, so is that considered part of the Joliet, even though it's in Bolingbrook?
Correct. And so you have a maximum square mileage allotment for an enterprise zone. It is now state mandated to be no more than 20 square miles. And it runs all the way down from that southern portion of the actual former Arsenal property, and it runs up 55 into Bolingbrook Plainfield. If you go to Will County GIS, if Becky's listening, the GIS service here is fantastic. You can pull up political boundaries or business boundaries in the enterprise zone. You can zoom in and out, and it gives you a great detailed map of the Joliet Arsenal one. We have 2 additional zones in the county, Des Plaines Valley, and then one on 57. Des Plaines Valley is run by Romeoville, and just, I believe last month you saw an expansion of their enterprise zone into the Cullinan property, which is 55 and 80.
So in the enterprise zone, do do these companies pay property taxes like residential properties do?
I'm going to turn that into a two-part question. Do they pay property taxes? Yes, they pay like a commercial or industrial property does, though not a residential.
Which I've been told is lower than residential.
No, our commercial or enterprise, it depends on the value of the property, right? But there's a whole different set of metrics that go into this than just a residential house. And so Dale would really be a better expert than me on property tax assessment, but they pay property taxes. They pay like a
And the
commercial or
same
industrial.
levies, the same?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
because in our industrial park, I was told that's not necessarily true, and their taxes are pretty nice. They're not very high compared to my property tax bill. So I would like to have a little more conversation about that in the future, because I'm hearing, that there are some differences here, and we really never talk about that.
That
So,
would be a presentation for our supervisor of
Okay.
assessments.
I
to-
was gonna say, might be a
Alright.
land
Yeah,
use
it's-
conversation at some
so-
point in the future.
so are there TIFs involved?
No TIFs. This is just in some enterprise zones, especially in other parts of the state where development is a little more scarce. They allow property tax abatements in their enterprise zones. We do not. We have everyone pay property taxes.
Okay.
And Mike, I was gonna say that essentially the 50 grand is the county getting paid for our work in administering
Correct.
the enterprise
That
zone.
is correct, right? And so these are not tax dollars. They're, I don't want to say sporadic, but they're few and far between, right? And so this is just kind of one-time revenue that we're fortunate to have. We changed the fee schedule this year for the first time to put fees in place because we thought county needs to start getting more value out of these zones. So.
And so they must have a board or a commission.
Correct. So every municipality is a part of the board, or I shouldn't say is a part of the board. If there is a project that goes into, what was the last one for this one? Plainfield and Bolingbrook, right? And so Plainfield has to also vote on it, and Bolingbrook also has to vote on it to make sure that they approve of those projects. Now, after that point in time, they approve the zone boundaries. I just want to clarify that, the zone boundaries. And then after that, we are the administrator as the overseeing government entity.
So it's approved at the Joliet Enterprise Board, not our board.
No, we do not approve those. I don't-
Joliet.
You have approved, you approve
Oh,
these,
right,
yeah,
we
you
do.
approve
We're one of
boundary
the entities
changes,
that
right?
has
And
to
so,
approve it.
so these little, so this is a warehouse re-rack project. This doesn't come to the board. This is, hey, we have a project within the zone. It needs a new certificate of exemption. Will you be willing to offer it? Yes, here is our fee schedule for 2025. Here is the $50,000 for the administrative fee. Okay, thank you so much. We review their project, make sure it complies, and put in the sales tax exemptions, and then they file with DCEO.
We being
The
the county
county
executive.
signs has the exemptions, and then they
The
file with
county
D.
executive.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, we're the administrator of the fund.
So just getting back, so the Joliet Enterprise Zone has a board or a commission.
It is made up of the municipalities that are a part of it. And so for the last
Okay.
board change, the last boundary change, we did a board meeting here with Bolingbrook and Plainfield because those were the two affected
The
municipalities.
county
The
executive
county did.
What-
Yeah, it was posted from the county. It is a board meeting last year. We did it in, call it June. And then the boundary changes go to this board here.
And then just who appoints the people on
Really,
the,
if we need to add this to a future topic,
I'm
I think
just
you're
asking-
asking really good questions, but we have a lot to get through yet, and we're not approving the enterprise zone. We're only approving getting the 50 grand from them. So I would.
With
I think it's
With that-
helpful to understand.
Member Berkowitz, I would, to respect the chair and the time of this, I would gladly sit down with you at any point in time to go through the enterprise zone, run through boundaries and potential projects there, and what it is meant for the county, because it's been quite a boon for EAV throughout the entire county.
I think this would be good for the whole board. So
I would
maybe,
agree. I would
maybe
be
we have
happy
a
to add it.
special meeting.
I'd be
Thank
happy
you.
to add it to a future
Appreciate it.
finance or land
Thank you.
use meeting. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Thank you, Mike. Do we have a previous roll?
Previous role.
How about a second? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, number 10. And I know I'm gonna need somebody to explain this one. A discussion of Shanahan tax abatement. Oh, let me, hold on one sec. Sorry about that. And let me turn on number 9 as well.
Any
Did you-
documentation?
Thank you.
Do you have any?
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Tom Durkin. I'm the village administrator with the Village of Shanahan. Here with me is Heather Wagenblatt. She's the finance director with the Village of Shanahan. And Mayor Schumacher is also here in the front row to wish everybody a good afternoon. So
Thanks for coming.
we won't take up too much of your time, but we wanted to give you an update on a couple of projects that the county board had a hand in making possible. In 2015 and again in 2017, the county board, along with other taxing bodies, voted unanimously to make an investment in the Shanahan community and also within their individual districts by agreeing to 2 separate resolutions to both rebate and abate property taxes generated by the development of parcels in the Shanahan Corporate Center and in the Crossroads 55 Business Park. So those were 2 industrial areas that were developed in Shanahan. The purpose of those resolutions was to partner in the funding of public improvements that were necessary to realize those developments. So briefly, in 2015, the 118-acre Shanahan Corporate Center was approved at the northeast corner of I-55 and Bluff Road. The development of this land required public improvements to be made that included improvements to the I-55 and Bluff Road interchange, along with the extension of a village water main under I-55 to the property at a cost at that time of approximately $4.2 million. So a tax rebate agreement was developed between all the taxing jurisdictions and the village, whereby a portion of the property taxes paid on those developments were reallocated to the village to assist in the repayment of bonds the village issued to fund the public improvements according to a specific schedule. The result was the development of the property resulted in 3 buildings being constructed, which currently house Michelin Tire in one building. There's an Amazon sortation facility in another building and a company named IMC Trucking. And currently, the total equalized assessed value of those properties is a little over $14.2 million. So we're happy to announce that happy to announce that the second building, which was built, which is IMC Trucking, will be satisfied this year. The final building constructed, which is houses Michelin Tire, will come on board next year. And the first building built, because it was a little bit longer of an abatement, the Amazon sortation facility will be done in 3 years. So it was a very successful project. So a couple years later in 2017, the 300-acre Crossroads 55 Business Park was approved just north of the previous development. And that required improvements to be made that included the reconstruction of Bradley Street, Amico Road, the construction of the remainder of Exchange Boulevard, along with further extension of that water main I referenced earlier. And that was to the tune of about $10.5 million of public improvements. And because that one was structured a little bit differently than the first project, being that we didn't issue bonds, that was the developer that paid for those. There was an interest component as part of that. So the total abatement under that agreement was not to exceed $12.8 million. And again, it's important to note the agreement was structured to abate the property taxes from only those buildings that were constructed in there, in that industrial park. So the development of this project resulted in 3 additional buildings being constructed, which currently house an Amazon fulfillment center, Scott's, who does all the lawn care products that we all probably use many times, and Cardinal Health, and a current totalized equalized assessed value of $37.2 million. So the agreement relative to the first 2 buildings that were constructed there will be satisfied, and that's Cardinal Health and Amazon, will be fully satisfied this year, and Scott's next year. So all said and done, when all buildings related to these two agreements have been satisfied, county will realize a little over $282,000 annually in property taxes from these projects. That's based on the current EAV of all those properties and the current tax levy rate. For comparison purposes, to give you an idea, if this project never happened and the property was still vacant, undeveloped farmland, and based on the current levy and the EAV, the yearly property tax to the county would be in the neighborhood of $800 to $1,000 a year. So you're going from what would have been $800 to $1,000 a year with no development to $280,000 from that development. So we're here today to give you that good news and to also thank you for your investment in our community. I think the vision and the commitment of this board and all the other taxing bodies in utilizing this approach is a great example of regional cooperation, and it should be emulated. Not only will the buildings constructed soon fully contribute to the non-residential tax base that's important to all taxing bodies, as it reduces the reliance on the residents that we all serve. It also helps create jobs for the community in the region. It can spur additional economic development opportunities, which this has in the area. And it also increased the need for additional residential growth in the communities. And I think most importantly, it gives us all the ability to continue to provide and improve the services and our programs that the residents come to expect. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's really good to get some good news.
Well, again,
Does anybody have questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, now going back to old business, pay raises for countywide elected officials and county board members. We've got some information here that Mr. Pelkey put together for us. And for discussion purposes, does anybody have questions, comments?
Maybe after Chuck presents his information.
Let me turn it over to you. Yeah, what number are you? I always. One? No, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, I really wasn't ready to present just in essence, the initial report that I presented was just a follow-up from a number of questions from county board members. And it really kind of speaks for itself. I think the questions were, what are the job descriptions for all of the countywide elected officials involved? We talked with human resources. There's no one place where you can find a job description for a countywide elected official. They're encapsulated across the entire spectrum of statutes, whether it's the county sheriff, whether it's the county clerk, whether it is the county executive. There is no one place, certainly not here in Will County, where we have a job description for the Will County executive, the Will County clerk, the Will County coroner. Their jobs are incorporated over the course of the statutes that govern what they should be doing. We were also asked to take a look at what the increases in terms of healthcare costs were for both county-wide elected officials and for county board members going back to the last time the raises or the last time an increase was authorized. And I believe that was 2006. We talked with human resources and we determined that or they were unable to provide records going further back than 2016. But I did outline, based upon what the records were available, what countywide elected officials were paying based upon their rate of payback in 2016. And so, for example, in 2016, for the employee only, a countywide elected official was paying $54.56. For family coverage, it was $163.68. They were paying back in 2016 for PPO coverage, 16.3% of the total cost of that coverage. On the HMO, for example, and then going back to 20, or coming currently to 2025, that increased for employee only. It went from 54.56 up to $93.36 per pay period. For family coverage, it went from $163.68 for family coverage to $280.10. And the total percentage cost was it jumped from 16.3% in 2016 up to 19.4% in 2025. There were similar costs for HMO coverage, or similar increases for HMO coverage as well. For county board members, once again, in 2016, for employee only, they were paying $14, or a county board member would pay $14.11 per pay period. That jumped in 2025 to $34.95 per pay period. For family coverage, for PPO coverage, it was $42.34, and that jumped up to $104.86, and it went from 4.2% of the total cost to 7.3% of the total cost. Again, similar increases for HMO coverage on that. Finally, we were also asked what were some of the costs of other county, I guess, benefits is what it was referenced to. Things like vehicles or things like cell phones. Again, on cellular phones, there's really a question as to whether a cellular phone is a benefit or a perk, or whether it's an important function of a county official doing their jobs. But the bottom line is this: the devices are free. The cell phone cases cost $48.74 per unit for a total of $146.22. The cellular plan costs $479.88 annually per unit for a total cost of $1,400 for the county executive, the county clerk, and the county coroner, who are the only ones who keep cellular phones, county issued cellular phones. As far as the cost of county owned vehicles, I don't believe anybody who's covered by this particular analysis drives a county owned vehicle other than the coroner. And they purchased their vehicle used. It is a Ford Timberline Explorer, purchased used in 2022 at a cost of $43,908. The coroner responds to calls 24/7. The vehicle that was purchased was large enough to transport a body if necessary. So those were the follow-ups to some of the questions that county board members had. I think Marcy has put together a spreadsheet as well that talks about the total costs related to bringing these or to providing the pay increases as presented. So I don't know, Marcy, if you want to come up and.
Joe, do you have a question in the meantime?
I just would like to make a comment before we continue, if you allow that. I do know that this graph was presented back in February, I believe. It came to this committee. It was up for discussion. The following month, I know we were light-handed. A lot of the members were at NACO, so we decided not to put it back on the agenda. So the full board would have an opportunity to not only have enough time to look at these figures, but also have the proper participation. So that's why it's on this month's agenda. And I would like to just, open it up for discussion here and hopefully try to pass out a committee, and let's bring it to the full board in another 2.5 weeks. I do know that we have plenty of time to ask more questions, but that is my goal for this being on today's agenda. So thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. And I have a comment. Marcy, if I'm reading your spreadsheet correctly, if we implemented all the salary increases as originally outlined, the cost for the 26-27 fiscal year, which would be the first time any of the raises would take place, would be roughly $136,000, correct? Okay. What? Oh, I had it turned around. What happened? I must have hit the wrong button again. Okay.
That would be the total raises, correct? So currently, these elected positions, the salaries are about 1.2 million. So that you would just be adding an additional 136,000, correct?
Okay. Judy, hold on. Let me get your mic on. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry. I just want to make a comment about like the insurance cost. Way back in the day, before most everybody was on this board, the cost for insurance was extremely low. At that time, the determination was made to see that the overall cost paid for the insurance would reach about 20%. And that's pretty accurate from what we show. The advantage our employees have over other companies perhaps is that you pay based upon what your salary range is. So it's different salary ranges pay a different percent for the cost of the insurance. So that was the goal we had, and I'm glad to see that we're nearly at that goal. It's very close to 20%. I don't know if that percent needs to go up or not. It's probably something we can look at, in the future. My question though, Marcy, is, so this is the cost for their salary to go up, but what is the additional cost that we pay for IMRF? Because everyone but county board gets a pension. The cost of the IMRF, the cost of the, we pay additional FICA and everything. Is this a built-in cost or this is just the straight cost of just the salary? Right, so we need to know the total cost of what it's going to cost us, because while their salary might increase from, let's just take the first one up there for 26, 27, go from 93,116 increase of 22,800 something, 24.6% increase, gives you a salary increase of $115,000. That's just the salary. That's not the cost to us overall. That would include your IMRF payments that we make and FICA and Medicare and all of that. So that is an additional cost that's not seen here. And then remember, then all this rolls up into the pension cost, because all countywide elected officials get a pension. County board members don't unless they were in from before. There was a change in the legislation. So there's that additional cost on top of it that we don't have those numbers. So we don't really know what that cost is totally.
Thank you. Julie, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Newquist. So back at our February 4th finance meeting, I had said that I would like to get the IMRF information for these positions. I'm still baffled why the county can't have a job description. I think everyone who works here should have something that guides them and tells them what their expectations are. It's just, I don't think we need a state statute to tell us we can or cannot do that. It's just part of any company. I think we're like a company, like any other business, but we're just paid by the taxpayer. But that's just, to me, a basic guideline. You want to know what's expected of you, and that's typically called a job description. So that, I really don't understand why we don't have that, why that doesn't exist here. The other thing is, so the mention of the car or the truck for the coroner. So do we pay mileage and insurance and gas for that? Does she drive it for personal use? Is it only driven for county use?
I don't have an answer to that question, no.
Well, that's, I think we should understand that. We have, I know some township vehicles, there's a lot of residents that are starting to talk about what's going on at townships. Are these highway commissioners driving the taxpayer funded car 24 hours a day. And is that, is that fair? So that's another piece of information I think we need to have. Again, we've never really learned, are these part-time? And if they're part-time positions, is that 25 hours a week? Is that 30 hours a week? How did we get to the numbers, the increase, the percentages? And I guess I was wondering who created this information that we're looking at right now? Who determined a 34% increase in 2028 for the county executive? Who are the individuals?
If
who
you
is bringing
recall,
this
Julie, I
forward?
believe it was based on averages on other counties, as I recall.
Well, I remember that conversation distinctly, and I remember we didn't know a lot of things. We didn't know one county is full-time, one county is not. We were not dealing with apples to apples. So again.
Joe's next and then you, Judy. So. Go ahead. Joe.
Well, to answer a couple questions, I think every elected position, the countywide elected position, is a full-time job. To answer the job description, if staff went and looked for a job description and could not find one, that is the case. Every board member is entitled to go find your own job description if you like, but if there's not one there, there's not one there. I don't ever remember signing up for a job description that called me a county board member, but I do know what it entails. It puts my name on the ballot. I come to meetings. I make decisions on allotting money to the county executive to carry out the duties. I meet with residents. I answer phone calls. I read emails. That is my job as a county board member. I feel that every countywide official probably has their own job description on how they want to handle their office. But like I said, if staff doesn't find an official job description, then I believe there's not one there. But I do know that they all are full-time positions. One thing I did fail to mention, the reason why these raises are presented this way is we have not, as a county board before my time and before a lot of others, have not given a raise to any countywide or any county board member in close to 2 decades. And we have saved an incredible amount of money by not doing that. Fiscally responsible. And now with me being the new speaker, I felt it was time that we actually face the music and bring this to the attention of the county board members and try to do what's right. It's been going on way too long, and these numbers are based off of averages of the surrounding counties, like I believe Chair Newquist had said. I would not complain here nor there whether the coroner is using her vehicle for personal use. My guess would be probably not. It's a county vehicle. She uses it for county purposes only. I've been in the trades my whole life, and I know that when they are issued a company vehicle, they are only to use it for company time. They jump in their own vehicle and do personal grocery shopping or whatever. But I think that's a minimal amount, even if she did drive it for personal use. Chuck said he didn't have that information. I'm willing to let that slide. I would think that she would do what's right and only use it as property of Will County. Other than that, I had another statement, but I forgot. I will just allow the committee to continue their discussion. Thank you,
Judy,
Chair. I
go
may have to jump in again.
No problem.
Thanks. So like Joe said, yeah, countywide positions are all considered full-time. The only ones considered part-time are the county board members. There is a job description, as Chuck said, but it's scattered throughout many different pieces of legislation. So you couldn't gather from one spot, but there is a job description we have in our ordinances that says that the county executive should be blah, blah, blah. It isn't every single thing. Every county is different. Every task would be a bit different. I don't think that's a problem. I do know that the difference between what we do here with the county executive form of government, our duties are a bit different than duties in counties where they don't have the executive form of government, because the county board members there have a lot more responsibilities than we do. We're assigned committees and oversight. They're actually in charge of departments. They don't have an executive who's there in charge of the departments and making sure things go the way they are. So there is a bit of difference. I know that at one point in time that our treasurer, he put together this, he went out and he looked at all the different counties surrounding, and he came up with, well, this, he kind of averaged it out as to what would be suitable to bring forward. That's what he brought forward. I know that the previous Democrat leader wanted to have county board members get to that 35,000. So here's the thing that you guys have to have the conversation about, because you haven't done it, and maybe it doesn't finish today. I know Joe would like to move it, but maybe you're not. You need to look at this and say, is it reasonable for the county board members to go from 23,000 to, I think it says 28,000, a 22% increase for that first year of a salary increase? Is it reasonable? Do you think it's reasonable? Yes or no? Maybe you think it should go to 30,000. Maybe you think it should go to 25,000. You guys have to have that conversation and come up with that. Same thing with countywide elected officials. I personally feel that, well, the county executive is separate there or no? Is she? Yeah. So I think that's, my opinion is that possibly there's a group of countywide elected officials that have more responsibility than others, and maybe there should be two platforms. That's my opinion. There's opinion of a county board speaker, chair, whatever we call it next year, or in 2 years, I don't know, make more money than the county board members because they put in more time. And I kind of go back and forth on that, having been the chair for the last 2 years. I understand you put in a tremendous amount of time. But I also remember Jim Musta saying he wanted it to always be the same pay, then it doesn't become as politically desired to be the chair. Because if you're going to make more money, it's kind of nice to make more money. It doesn't mean you're working any harder, because you don't have to. If you've got great staff, you don't have to work any harder than a county board member. If you don't have great staff, or you have new staff, obviously you put in more time. So it's less beneficial from there. I just know when I was the chair, I put in a lot of hours. I worked a minimum of 3 days the first 3 weeks of every month, and probably 1 to 2 the last week of the month. So those are the conversations this finance committee needs to have the conversation about. And I would just say, go through it one at a time. Maybe start with the county board because it's easier, it's smaller, it's us. What you think makes sense. And I have no idea what either caucus has talked about as far as, do we support an increase? Do we say, you know what? I could agree with increase, but half of what's listed. Maybe that's what we have. But you have to have a conversation to start somewhere. This is a starting point. That doesn't mean you have to do this. It doesn't mean you don't have to do it, but it's what's being suggested. So thank you.
Welcome. Denise?
Thank you.
Oh, wait, excuse me. Tim, did you want to respond?
Comment on the generation of numbers, I'd be glad to shed some light on.
Okay, Denise, are you okay with letting Tim go? Go ahead, please.
So
Hold on, let me turn your mic on.
Yeah.
Okay.
these numbers came from a survey that I did through other counties. I didn't do all 102. I did the somewhat larger counties. We're the third largest outside of Cook County. But our countywide officers were paid at that time. The original survey is about 3 years old now. We were paid 14th out of those counties. And so that's when I started to suggest that maybe we should look at this. The last time the board voted to raise countywide salaries, and maybe county board as well, was 2004. So 21 years ago was the last vote that was taken. That vote included incremental increases over the next couple of years. So the last time countywide pay was changed was 2007. It increased in 2007 to 93,116 or whatever that says. Had you awarded similar increases to countywide elected officials who are employees, I treat it like a full-time job, like you did your every other employee in the county. I don't know, most groups are enjoying 4 or 5% raises, but just 4% that number would be 72% higher today. So what I used to come up with that 116, I think was 1%. If you gave your countywide elected officials 1% raise since that time to today, that would be about 116. I think I rounded it off. So it was just saying, are these employees in these roles worth 1% a year when everybody else in the county is getting 4 or 5%? Up to you to decide. That was my rationale for using that number, but it would still leave us well below the largest county average pay for countywide officers. So the statutory duties that are assigned to these offices deserve the respect of the county board to say, yes, these duties assigned to these departments are valuable to us, and they hopefully the number offered in compensation will generate interest from people that want to serve, that have the caliber talent necessary to do those jobs.
Thank you. Denise, thank you. Appreciate you waiting.
Not a problem, because mine is tied to Tim's. I came to the county board from corporate America, and in that position, we reviewed salaries on a regular basis, and we look at the min, the mid, the max, the minimum for similar positions in other similar industries, midpoint, and the maximum, and adjusted salaries accordingly, using that same kind of a table. So I came on this board in 2009. We have not since then, and that clearly not before then, but certainly since 2009, we have not adjusted. I just want to remind people also that face time and work time are not the same thing. Very often people can show up every day and depending on their position, may not be putting in. And people who take top positions are at home working when others are watching TV. And I know that having done that work. So we want to keep that in mind. It's not about punching a clock and showing up. And that goes for county board too, because they're out in your district, you're at this church has a function, that neighborhood association has something. You have to show up here, there, and everywhere. Or at the very least, you got to come up with some kind of a proclamation to give them to share for their events. So I would just caution us about using FaceTime as a judgment of whether people are working or not. And personally, I would absolutely support an increase. We are way beyond due. And I say that people who are elected are just as valuable as people who come to us through the contract, through union contracts, and so need to be treated with the same respect, same consideration that others do. Not everybody who is here takes the health insurance. It's a nice thing if you take it, if you don't, but not everybody does. And other than that, and certainly I cannot imagine that Lori is driving around in something that will haul a body when she is not at work. She's on call 24/7, which is why she has that. It's in her driveway. She's using her car because she's not hauling that hearse, because that's really what it is, to the grocery store, and would not want to be seen doing that, or anybody else with a company car. You don't want to be seen. I know I had a car when I worked for the power company. I don't want to be caught anywhere in that, because first thing people say is, oh, look how they're getting over. You're not doing that. So I would just encourage us to remember those things when we're thinking about what we're giving people.
Thank you. Dan and then Julie.
So I think that anyone that runs for office and is elected by the people should be here for that purpose, as a privilege to represent their people. And I don't feel that there should be a high incentive as far as salary goes, because I feel like it might attract the wrong kind of people. I think that people who put their sense of duty ahead of the money are going to be a better quality of people, better served to serve the people. I'm not saying that I would not entertain some sort of raise for regular positions that are working 5 days a week, like the 10 countywides. But on some of these numbers, I have a vague recollection, but I believe that if you took the average of all the salaries, you could come up with one number. But if you were to divide the population, because I feel like we're all project managers as politicians and leaders, because Our job is to handle people. So I figure you divide the number of people into that salary. And if you look at it that way, like, we're actually paid pretty good. So I think this is a good starting point. We had to start somewhere. I appreciate somebody putting some out there. There's definitely some more discussion that has to go here, and maybe, you know, I get, you know, sometimes we say job description, and technically, you know, we know that a lot of what we do is controlled by statute. So it's, but to say that there's no description, or there's no job, or there's no way to encapsulate what a person does in order to make an informed decision on some sort of salary, it's kind of semantics when you do that. There's got to be something, you know, that we know what they do. Like, we know, you know, there's a whole list of duties that they do that would help this committee to say, well, this is a lot of work. You know, this is what they're doing every day, and they deserve so much money. So, you know, I don't want to get too hung up. I know she asked for, a board member asked about a job description. And, you know, I think what she's just saying is like, let's find out what the duties are of the people. And I think it would be I just want to say that I think, I'm not saying you were wrong or anyone was wrong. I agree with you, you know, but what I'm saying is that we probably need to really examine this and look, and maybe we meet with each one of the people to get a better understanding of what they do. As far as the county board, I'm going to be a hard no. You know, just hard no on any salary increase, 100% for sure. But as far as the county-wides, we are part-time employees. And, you know, I'm not independently wealthy, you know, I actually suffer from being here financially, but it's a sacrifice that I wanted to make for the people that I represent. And I'm happy to do so. So I don't think this is ready to be moved forward for sure, but maybe we need to get serious. Maybe an ad hoc committee needs to be put on. Maybe this committee needs to, you know, meet with people and find out, get a better understanding of what their workloads are. Thank you.
Julie?
Tim, I have another question for you. Thank you. So, thank you for bringing this forward, and it's really easy to read. I appreciate
I
it.
didn't do that. That's-
Oh, Marcy, thank you, Marcy. And it's big enough print that I can read it, so thank you. I have a question about why the salaries are lower between the 11/2026 term and the 11/2028.
So I was looking back at the 2004 decision, and at that time, they increased the salary to some number below this. And they had a 2.5 to 2.3 to 2.5% increase each year. So it looked like the then county board intended to include regular increases, somewhere close maybe to inflation or so. I'm not sure what they used, but it was between 2.3 and 2.5. So I said, well, if the then county board intended that, maybe we should incorporate that into the salary structure so that there's a small raise every year instead of these huge jumps every 20 years. It would make it easier for someone deciding to seek the position to say, okay, I can live with that, and I could see maybe a 2 or 3% increase. Okay, I can live with that.
Well, I'm more curious about the salary. So why aren't they all paid the same salary? So the 2028, their salary level is different.
Because of the
Yeah.
staggered. So some of the countywides are elected in 26, the salaries would take effect. The others aren't reelected then or elected until 28. You can't get a pay raise in the middle of a term. So that box to the right shows you the people that would not yet get the salary increases until they were either elected or reelected.
Okay. So after the election at 2028, then 2029, it would go up to, okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. And you guys, you'll all be shocked by this. but I'm going to say it and I'm going to shock you, especially you, Joe. I think the salary for the county board members is too low. I mean,
Okay, we should
and
vote right
and I'm going, now I don't know that I would vote for the increase, but here's why. Because I'll tell you, and this is, I know you think I'm a pain in the, the butt because of my description. I bring that forward because, and everyone who knows me thinks I really think things through and look at the big picture. I know when people come forward to run for this office, a lot of them are like, what do? They don't know what they do. And we all know people have gotten elected and honestly, they don't even know what a county board member does. And that's why I'm encouraging just some type of a description, what do our county board members do? What do we do? It might even encourage people to run for office if they know exactly, oh, hey, yeah, that I have a lot of expertise to add to finance or to add to land use. So that's only why I bring that forward. I think it's also good practice to have some type of a, description. But in regards to the salary, why do I say that even that is honestly, I'll be honest with you, is low? And the reason why is, as a county board member, what I've learned being on the county board is our job doesn't end here after committee. We walk out. We're expected to volunteer in the community. We sit on many other boards that are not part of the Will County Board. We are appointed to other positions to work with other organizations throughout the county. So I will honest, and I'm putting it out there that no one's going to tell me that this is a part-time job. I even gave up my second fun job because I just couldn't do both anymore. So, did I shock you? There you
Little
go.
bit.
There you go.
Make a
So I
final
just wanted
comment?
to share
And
that,
then
but,
no Sherry, Judy.
I'm not sure, if we are going to bring this forward, I would like that conversation is that, for the county board members, is that sufficient? So, thank you.
Just a quick comment.
Let's go Tim, then we'll go Joe, Sherry, Judy.
Dan, in my postgraduate work, compensation science was a fairly well-studied science, differs for every type of business, but peer review is usually the way it's done with some economic considerations that Denise mentioned. There is some benefit, especially in a free market, to a tournament-style compensation, which means the person at the top, the winner in a tennis tournament, a golf tournament, makes a huge amount of money more than the rest of the folks beneath, right? But that compensation package at the top is put there to incentivize and motivate those beneath to perform and do well so they could maybe reach the top. Obviously, they all don't, but that's what generates that. And so then looking at your peers, a 20-year lack of attention to this is almost derelict. Your peers are looking at you saying, and maybe your constituents saying, this is a reflection of your respect for the statutory duties assigned to you. This is how little you respect them. Now, your peers have all said, we're moving things up because we need to attract good people to these roles. And so if you put those ingredients of compensation science together, I think you'll see that you can't deny this any longer. You can't ignore it any longer. And in fact, you have to look at the future and say, how are we going to attract good people, better people, qualified people? I'm telling you, the bankers in town won't look at a job like this for 90-some thousand. Sorry. And that's who we're thinking about, is the next people that are going to reach for these things. I think you have to motivate and expect the best instead of, sure, there's some public service there too, but there's compensation that's due for work performed.
Thank you. Dan.
Lastly, sorry, you can't delay it much longer. If you wait till the threshold of when it's due to that 6-month point, you get that frenzy of activity and that other things end up on your agenda and it gets missed. I'd say do it when you don't have the pressure of a deadline in front of you. Thank you.
So Dan, I'm sorry, we have other people waiting to speak, so.
reply to the comment you made, because I think you misunderstood
Ki-
that I agree with the text.
Okay, thank you. Chuck, before you go, Joe, Chuck wants to respond about the job description.
No, yeah, I just wanted to be absolutely clear to, Member Berkowitz and Member Butler. It's not that I just couldn't, create a job description for all of these individuals. They don't exist. There's nowhere in the county that these job descriptions exist. So I went to look for them. If they would have been there, they would have been on the table for you to consider. So I just wanted to be absolutely clear about that.
And just as an aside, sorry, Joe, being on the ordinance committee, I mean, I have seen extensive job descriptions for each office. They're in our ordinances. And they're actually not that hard to find, but you do have to do a little digging. But like the county executive, for example, there's an entire page of what the county executive does. Now, it is different for some of the other countywides because our ordinances don't necessarily cover them. But anyway, that was just my comment. Sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you, Chair. Another two things that I forgot to mention, and Tim did kind of touch on this. I absolutely love every county board member currently, and I absolutely love every countywide elected official currently. But this board cannot just hand out raises to individuals. All these raises are for the people that follow us and actually win their position. I just wanted to make that clear to the public. We are not here to give ourselves raises. We are given the position raises in the future. And the first raise does not take effect for 2 years. I know this is a serious matter, but a little side joke. I can tell you firsthand that speaker is very underpaid.
Thank you.
All right.
Sherry, let me turn your mic on. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, my comment basically is about the job descriptions because there isn't going to be a set job descriptions for elected officials like there are for just regular jobs because this, of course, this isn't just a regular job. But it is also state statute determines what these job descriptions are. And also, I don't know anywhere where anyone would think that you would just work and not get compensated for the work that you do. I think that we all deserve to be compensated for the work that we do. Now, of course, some of us work harder than others, but it is what it is. And as far as the benefits are concerned, I personally don't take the health insurance. So a lot of people don't. So including that is fine, but you can't include it for everybody because everybody doesn't take it. You can get an average. But I do think that we may be overthinking that part of it. The fact of the matter is, who doesn't get some type of increase in the compensation in 2 decades? It just doesn't make sense to me. It has never made sense to me. And yes, I take my job as county board member very seriously. It is an elected position. I don't expect to get a whole lot of money for doing this, and I would do it if I didn't. School board members run for office, they don't get paid anything. However, we do a lot, and I think that as part of what we do, we should get that kind of compensation for it, and we shouldn't be expected to not get paid. Also, sometimes if you don't have any kind of a compensation, that might attract the wrong kind of people as well. So you don't necessarily get the best just by paying, and you also don't get the best by not paying. So I think that it's something that we all should be considered. And again, 2 decades is too long to not get some type of increase.
Judy, let me put your. Okay. Thank you for
Thank
waiting.
you. So I think that if you are not aware about what the countywides do, we could have the countywides come and tell us, or maybe we could just have Chuck send an email and say, hey, can you give us a summary? We know what Tim does. He comes here a lot and he talks about a lot of financial stuff, but I know that that particular office does a lot of different things that you may not be aware of. The clerk's office does, besides everyone thinks of elections, it does so much more. The auditor does finite auditing on everything, right? So maybe you want to ask them for something, have them come speak, or maybe, like I said, we can just have our chief of staff say, hey, county board members would like a general description of what you do. And when they write it, they're probably going to forget half of it. Because like, what Member Winfrey said is, yeah, it's not just the time you're here, it's the time you're not here. And when you're the chair or the speaker, you're on call all the time. People call you all the time. Staff calls you. You think of something, you call staff. Yeah, right. Stop you in the driveway. Right. So there's all of that in there. And then too, maybe you look at, what about the people who don't take a health insurance? Because that's $18,000 minimum. I don't know. Do you do a compensation for that? Some companies do that. This isn't a company, but there are a lot of things to consider in this. So that's just what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Chuck, did you want to comment?
No.
You saw me. Okay, any other comments? Okay, I personally would love to move this today. I don't know, I mean, it sounds like we're in somewhat general agreement about the county-wides at least. What I'm thinking is maybe we vote today to move this to the full board. And then I do actually like your suggestion, Judy, of having either a presentation by the county-wides or a general description of what they do. But I kind of feel like we've talked about this a lot, and I do think we need to include other people in this conversation. So I'd entertain a motion to move this along. Everything goes to executives, so. Okay, I got a motion by Denise, second by, do we want to do a roll call or just? Okay, can we go ahead and do a roll call? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking right at you. Good God. Okay,
Berkowitz,
So I just want to make sure this is not to agree to this. This is to move it to executive for further discussion.
right, well, we would move it to executive with these amounts, but then certainly it would be open to additional discussion at executive and even at the county board level. I just kind of want to move it forward, you know?
Yes.
Butler?
No.
Ortiz? Winfrey? Newquist?
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. Okay. Where are we? I lost my spot. Other new business? I don't believe we have any. Public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment? Going one more time, public comment. Announcements, reports by the chair. I have none. We don't need an executive session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, Winfrey, all in favor? Aye, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.